Spine upright to begin with, as always. We'll just sit quietly together for a few minutes. Just lightly close the eyes, spine upright. Just anchor in the breath before we begin properly. here, so just either bringing the hands into the lap or resting on the knees, palm up, or whatever's comfortable. It doesn't really matter too much. We're just going to return to this breathing pattern from right at the start of the course before we do anything else. So I'm going to let the breath go out. Then don't hold my breath, as in with force, but just stop breathing to the count of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then breathe in. Out. No locks, just stop the breathing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then allow the body to breathe in, out, then just stop the breathing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then breathe in, out, and then keep that pattern going. So on the end of every out breath, just freeze. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just count in your head, and then let the body breathe in and out. Again, don't lock, don't hold, just don't breathe. No method. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then again, just carry on for 10 minutes. Just a little more. Now when you breathe out and you hold, just try to relax, release inside as well, just letting go before you breathe in and out. Okay, now when you try this, before we just put the hands on the lap, yeah, last time, now try this, bring the hands around, see, soft, put one fist in the other hand, just light, loose, not even making a proper fist, I'm just floppy. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to listen inside my body and slowly relax the arms down, the weight of the hands, trying to feel the weight of the hands moving through my torso. Okay, so as I drop down, it draws the Qi down. I feel something pull and move through the body. Then I'm going to repeat, kind of like when we did the Hunyuan last weekend, same kind of feel, soft. But instead of drawing with the palms, I make a kind of a weight, it's like a dumbbell. And I'm just going to relax and let that dumbbell, especially when it gets down to my torso, make it very slow, and I listen inside. And I'm connecting the two together just by listening inside the body so that the weight of the hand draws the Qi down inside the body. Okay, and then I just relax the hands down. So I'm not using Lao Gong, just using the weight of the hands to pull the Qi down inside. So just by relaxing, listening, drawing that Qi down till it goes down to the base of the body. Just keep that going. What I'm doing is staying very soft, letting the hands be like a dead weight, and letting them sink through the inside of my torso. I want to feel the weight of the hands come down through the torso, pulling down. We'll keep this going for a little while. Pulling down, Stay nice and soft. And I want to feel the weight of my hands sinking through the insides, just to help draw the Qi down towards the base of the body. Just a few more. If there's too much structure in the arms, too much stretch, then you'll essentially send the Qi to the surface, which is fine for other stuff, but not what we want right now. We want the Qi deep inside, going down to the dantian. Just a few more. Now, in the form of this exercise, if I was practicing, I only do this movement once, just once. Just as I bring the hands down into my lap, I'm just doing it over and over with you, just so you can get a feel for it, so it pulls. So if I was practicing, I would just sit, I think, or wherever my hands were, I think, okay, I want to bring the hands to the dantian, I would just do this. Just once, just to draw the Qi down on this relaxed posture into my lap. So on the last one you do the best one you can, because I want to draw and anchor that Qi down to the dantian. And then don't even take it to dantian, take it lower if you want, just rest it in your lap, it's okay. And then we just want the Qi to be anchored low behind this weight of the hands. It doesn't feel like a mudra, yeah? It's just relaxed, but in a way it is a mudra, because the hands are still giving a instruction to the Qi, to the insides. It's the laziest mudra ever, yeah? Just slumped hands. Call it the slob mudra. Just resting there to pull the Qi down to the dantian. And just breathe. Listen inside. Just 5 minutes, just breathing, letting the weight of the hands on the bottom of the body just anchor the Qi low, back to the dantian. then optional, it's okay. This exercise is just to relax, take someone out of fight or flight, release the nervous system of the diaphragm, take everything down. But for those people that have excess chi in their head as well, and you have long enough arms, as we ascertained last time, then feel free to just take the fingers of one hand, usually the left, and just touch them to the floor, in my case a couch. So I'm just resting my arm and just touching them here. Just stay relaxed and listen inside, and that earth, if you like, just draws the chi down out of the head. If it's something you want to use often, maybe something you feel is useful, then maybe sometimes try the right hand or try the left. You'll figure out after a while which one works best for you. Like generally it's the left, but you can play around. You can play around. Find what works best. And you'll feel it run out of the head, down the arm, through the fingers into the hand after a while, like a little light current. If you have excess up there. If you don't have excess up there, you won't feel it run. But you'll feel it run through the arms, down through to the fingers. I tend to have a little bit, a tiny bit. I think I have the stress of running an international organization. Sometimes that causes me to have to problem solve and manage. So that sends a bit of chi up sometimes. So this is quite helpful for me just to drain it out. I used to be a really calm person, and then I started teaching. Now I have to drain it all out. Drain it all out. And just a few more breaths. Good, then just separate the hands. Take some deep breaths in and out. Fill the lungs, and then just let them go. Oxygenate the body. Nice deep breaths. Hard. And may as well anchor the kidneys. Two. Three. Eyes, temples, behind ears, neck. Twist the spine. And turn the head a little bit. And just ear to shoulder on the other side. Okay. I will talk just for a very short while, just to explain what meditation sickness is, very, very briefly, not too long. And then we will do, hopefully, 1, 2, 3. 3 fixes for meditation sickness, because you will find that different people will connect with different exercises. And if someone is suffering with meditation sickness, chambing, then they'll have to experiment a little bit and find out which one is best for them. But they'll normally find 2 of them work, 1 of them won't. It'll be something like that, and they'll have to figure out which one as much as anything. So, meditation sickness, super briefly. So, meditation sickness is essentially been more of an error for people, I would say, in the early stages of meditation than anything else. I think once someone gets quite deep into meditative practice, they're normally they're unlikely to get it. They'll get other issues instead, maybe, but not this particular thing. So, meditation sickness, really, the definition of it for me, I would define it ultimately as a great flatness and a great dislike of life, like a big all-pervading depression. Everything is pointless and nothing's worthwhile. It's like a sort of, I don't know, like a teenage sort of mood swing, but sort of stretched out over a really long period of time. I'm sure you've either been teenagers or your parents to teenagers, and they get those sort of woe is me, everything is pointless kind of moods. Sometimes they're stuck in emo mode. And meditation can kind of extend that out, and people can get caught in it, people of all ages. So it's quite difficult because it's not just, it's not something that's fleeting. People can get stuck in it for a really long time. And it's a little different from sort of, I know depression comes in lots of different formats, but it's a little different from how we would normally consider depression, because it's just more like a general disinterest in everything. Literally everything. Like literally nothing has no interest or flavor to it. And part of the problem with this is that people will often mistakenly, not from teachers, normally, I think teachers are normally quite okay in meditation, especially if you're in a tradition like Buddhism or Hinduism or something. I think that teachers are normally familiar with this, I think, if they've been around a while, or they should be. So normally you get fairly good guidance on it, I would hope. But some people are shaking. 3 people shook their heads. Oh, really? You've had experience in meditation circles, that's not the case. Okay. My hope would it would be dealt with quite well, but never mind. But I think where it becomes a problem is that people mistake some of what they think they're trying to achieve from meditation, and they think the meditation sickness is a sign of progress. And that's a part of the problem, because there's this whole intellectual idea, isn't there, that I'm sure if you've got experience in meditation, you will know that this is wrong and this is too basic. But there's this idea that the whole world is fake and it's just an illusion, and it's a tether that we're stuck to. And if you're Buddhist, you think it's all about suffering, and if you're Taoist, you think it's all about illusion, and if you're Hindu, then who knows what you think, but it's probably something along those same lines, in line with Buddhism. But this whole idea that we live in this kind of Maya illusion, really. So obviously when they say that the world is not real, that's not what they're referring to. In spiritual traditions, they're not saying the couch isn't real and the cushion isn't real and things like this. They don't mean in a literal sense. They don't mean in a quantum physics sense where molecules are mostly empty or something like this. Ultimately, it's because their definition of true and false are a little different. They're using the terms differently within spiritual traditions. They're not saying it's not real. Ultimately, what they're saying is it's not independent of causation. If we want to simplify it down to the kind of root of it, they're saying that all of this matter, everything you experience, is just part of an unfolding stream of causation. And ultimately, within meditation, I know that's a bit of a simplification, but it kind of gets you closer to what they're referring to. I know we could go deeper, but then it would be a long lecture. So ultimately what they're after in meditation is to move towards or seek that thing that is closer to stable. They're trying to find that part of you and merge with that part of being that is not dependent on causation. So therefore anything that is dependent on causation must be moved away from, or unattached from, or unidentified from. That is the aim of what they're discussing. But that's a little different from how people interpret it, because of course they interpret it as everything is false and everything is suffering and everything is an illusion, and I'm caught in this illusion. So it ends up this big emo trap on an intellectual level that people are kind of caught up in, this gothic mindset that just isn't helpful to anybody. Now the problem is that if somebody engages with meditation, you've got various reasons why this great flatness can arise. The first of which is that intellectual idea they get caught up in it. That's the first thing. It's just an intellectual problem. So they start to get caught up in it, and then that sets the mind off on this spiral of, oh no, everything is a problem. And that's the first root cause of meditation sickness. Now that one's nice and easy to fix, because normally what they just need is a conversation with somebody who knows what they're talking about, who they have trust in, who has some kind of authority in the subject, and normally you can kind of get them to see, even just on an intellectual level. So sometimes with meditation sickness, I've just even sat down, normally with younger people. It's younger people, isn't it, who dive in all enthusiastic and definitely want to escape the illusion of the world, not realizing the world's actually quite fun. And often if you have an intellectual conversation and sit down with people, you can kind of steer them out of it if it's on that level. Then it's not so much of a problem. The old slap and shake therapy. So yeah, you normally can talk them out of it, so it's not that much of a problem. And in my experience, it's really young, enthusiastic guys. That's the ones who get that side of it, the intellectual side. And there's other kinds, but they kind of get caught up in all that. It's like, I always try to tell the young students, don't be monks. Like there's often an obsession, you get these kind of guys who come in who just want to be a monk right from the beginning, and they're like 17 years old, 18 years old, they want to be a monk. It's like, don't be a monk. Like, have a life, live a little bit of a life before you step out of it, would be my advice. Don't sort of step out and miss out on all those learning opportunities that come from the experiences you can have by interacting with the world. Then the second kind of meditation sickness, the reason people can get to this stage is because they have fairly skillfully, I suppose, seen through the nature of the sense faculties, if you like, for want of a better way of putting it. They've seen through the illusion of the sense faculties. So the problem is the allure of the sense faculties starts to fade away. But the problem is the sense faculties, your touch, your taste, your hearing, your smell, your sound, and your thoughts, that's your sixth sense. Once they start to lose their allure, unfortunately, life starts to lose its luster. It starts to fade away. So once you no longer derive excitement from stimulation from any of those things through a detachment from it, what arises is a great flatness and a great depression. And it's not correct. It is incorrect. And it's that form of error that I think people make, that they mistakenly think is a sign of progress. It's very similar to Qigong practitioners who practice so much that they can't be around the public anymore, and then they think that's a sign of progress, whereas that's not a sign of progress, not at all. The fact that I can't handle the general public anymore is a problem. It means you've developed a weakness for yourself because you can't handle the public anymore. What you should be able to do is remain neutral and, dare I say, equanimous within the space of people around you. That would be a much healthier place to be, so that whether you're in isolation or whether you're in the middle of Mardi Gras in Brazil or whatever it is, I don't know, what's the festival, I don't know, surrounded by people all over the place, you can be in both of those situations and retain the same space inside. That would be a more positive sign of progress than I literally can't be around anybody, you know. That would be healthier. You know, so that you can blend to any social situation that is required of you at that time. If you have to have an annoying dinner with extended family, it shouldn't be annoying. If you have to have a very busy time around people, that shouldn't be tiring or shouldn't be exhausting. If you have to be on your own for a protracted period of time, that shouldn't be stressful, and you shouldn't get lonely. That would be a healthier place to aim for, so you can move between all of these places. Now, with regards to meditation sickness, you have to remember that as much as anything, we're not trying to sever the attachment to the senses. I would say that's an error in meditation at the beginning. Perhaps that comes later on lengthy retreats, but that's not somewhere you start at. What you're trying to do, and this is my term, I know it's my term, I apologize, rather than a classical one, but is to purify the sense faculties in meditation, which is not the same. To purify, to end the defilements of the sense faculties, to steal a line from one of the Taoist traditions, so that they are pure. It's not the same thing, right? Because what is one reason people get depressed in life, not even meditation? One reason. There's many reasons, of course. There's everything from chemical imbalances that you're born with, through to energetic problems, through to events that are depressing, and through to learnt behavior from family. There's all kinds of things, all kinds of reasons why this can arise. But there's another reason, which is overstimulation of the senses will ultimately lead to depression, which is why the majority of modern people will at some point experience depression, in my opinion. Even if it's not long lasting, I think it's the most common reason. I think it's going to be a huge problem for younger people. I can say that now at 41, I think. People in their 20s are going to have this problem massively because they grew up with telephones. That's going to be the main reason. It's not even a telephone anymore, is it? People look at you like you're ancient if you say telephone. It's a mobile. And it's like I still say push bike, and people look at me like that's a peculiar thing to say instead of bike, but you know, times have moved on and my terminology hasn't. So the reason I'm saying that's going to lead to depression is because ultimately your senses get overloaded. You know what I mean? Like if you think about the old days, what do? You walk around in the countryside, what did you see? There's a tree, there's a bush, there's a bit of mud, there's a stick, there's someone dying of plague or whatever, and you wander around your little sort of countryside area, and then all of a sudden you see something bright. You know what I mean? Like a bright flower. There's a bright flower. There's a, whoa, look at that red, or something like that. Like look in ancient times at stained glass windows in churches. Now from what I've heard, people used to gather around to look at the stained glass windows because they were so colourful compared to the medieval drab, especially if you were from England in Dark Ages or something. So that, what I'm saying is that visual stimulation was rare. Okay, it wasn't that common. It was like, oh, something that jumps out. And then maybe you heard some beautiful singing and, oh, that's nice, isn't it? And then maybe you had some kind of connection with someone that was exciting and, oh, that's nice. So you had these little peaks and troughs, and the sense faculty could process that. But now if you bring all the way through to modern times, of course what's happening is it's stimulation after stimulation after stimulation after colour, after sound, after light, after literally likes and doom scrolling in it, where it just draws in the hours and things like this, and then movies and music and TV and constant stimulation and overload. Our food is too flavoursome, our music is too prevalent, the colours are too bright, the TV is everywhere, we can talk to anyone, anywhere on the planet that we want to within seconds and communicate on this kind of level. All of that is constant hyperstimulation of the sense faculties. What will happen is a couple of things. First of all, you'll normalize those to the point where they're no longer stimulating anymore. So it's like your senses just give up. Ugh, they're burnt out. So therefore they can no longer derive pleasure from any experiences. That's going to be the first thing that's going to happen, right? Now, ideally, for most people, if you're going to live a sense-stimulated life, you should have enough excitement in your sense faculties to last the rest of your life. But if by the age of 25 or 30, you've already spent hours with all of this technology, all of this information, all this lights, all this stimulation, people like me, people don't like me, people are following me, credence, blah, 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 all this going on, then essentially you're going to burn out your sense faculties by about 35 years old, I would imagine. They're done. They've seen everything. They've done everything. They can't take any more. So that is going to lead to depression. Can you see how that would arise? It's going to be the first reason. The second reason, that's the first one, because essentially it's going to burn out. The second problem, or the second thing that's going to arise, is a constant strive for more. You're going to need more. You're going to need more. You're going to need more. It's going to go up. It's going to go up. It's going to go up. Now, for fear of sounding like an old conservative or something like that, we only have to look at like censorship in media. Why do we think censorship has changed? And all right, let's not go too far back to the 1920s, where if a lady showed an ankle bone, men everywhere would move into an animalistic desire and couldn't control themselves. We don't have to get ridiculous, but certainly even in the case of my lifetime, from 1980 when I was born, the level of censorship has gone that well. With your opinions, it's clearly gone up, hasn't it? But with regards to what's shown in movies, I would say it's gone down. The level of sexual stimulation and violence. I mean, it used to be very taboo to show a rape in movies or on TV series. That was like a really shocking thing that you didn't do. You didn't have that in a storyline. Now we have entire series where that's kind of the plot, isn't it? Game of Thrones or something like that, isn't it? Just that's commonplace, and violence and torture and murder. Now, for me, some people would say that that's okay, that censorship is a negative thing, but I don't think it is. I don't think so at all. I think what we're seeing is just generally people are needing further and further degrees of stimulation until it becomes more debased, more debased, more debased. Has to have that taboo element that strikes that chord within people, but eventually it'll get to a point where there's no taboos. What are you going to do then? I've got no idea. It's just going to have to get more shocking and more shocking and more shocking, or all of these media sources are going to lose all entertainment value and no one's going to be interested. Yeah. So sorry if that makes me sound like an old fart saying that, but essentially that's what I believe is happening with regards to everything, right? Now, essentially, that is going to lead to dissatisfaction and depression in the majority of cases, which is why in order to cure that, what people need is stepping away from those things for a time. They need to defrag their sense faculties. They need to calm down. They need to chill. They need to retreat from those things for periods of time. Especially if you're a parent to younger people or you know younger people, I would advise find some way to get them to do that kind of thing. Otherwise, they're going to knacker their sense faculties by the time they're 35, and then nothing in life will be interesting for them anymore, and then they're going to have a miserable existence, and then they will have dukkha, definitely, because they'll have generated it through a lack of stimulation anymore. The other way it can happen is because people in meditation, it's the same result but a different mechanism, is that they've severed the connection of joy to their sense faculties. Yeah? And that will happen for some people through Vipassana training, or it can happen through mindfulness training, even modernized sort of, what do you call it, sort of corporate mindfulness? I don't know if that's the right word for it, but you know what I mean, sort of out into the general public. For some people, mindfulness is great. For other people, it can cause this problem. It can just do that to the sense faculties where all that excitement is gone. It's like severed. It can happen through anapanasati systems, which is essentially as a sati, mindfulness of the in-breath and the out-breath. But I'm using these as terms of systems. And I'm using them as examples because these are fairly commonplace and basic systems, right? Now, if you have 10 people doing Qigong, same movement, say they're all doing, I don't know, whatever, compressing the pearl, 10 people doing compressing the pearl. You can look at all those people on their movements and say, that's wrong because that's wrong, you know, that person needs to lower their shoulders, that person needs to sink their qua, that person needs to put their head up straight, that person needs a haircut or whatever. And I can go down the line and I can sort of see on the outside what the error might be with regards to their practice, yeah? But can you do that with 10 people sat with meditation in front of you? 10 people with their eyes closed doing the same breathing exercise? Perhaps if you're an incredibly skilled meditation teacher to the extent that you can actually feel the causation that they are generating through whatever they're doing at that time, perhaps, yes, in which case fine. But if you're not at that level, you've got 10 people sat there. Do you know what all 10 of them are doing with their mind? Because that's your methodology, isn't it? It's your breath and your mind. So do you know that they've all got their mind in the right place? Well, you pretty much guarantee they haven't generally with regards to meditation, but do you know they're doing the method properly? Do you know what their mind is doing to the sense faculties at their time? Do you know what their mind is doing to the energy inside their body at the moment? I would say not. It's quite tricky. And of course, the more that group expands, the harder and harder it is anyway. So meditation has that problem inherent within it, that you can't see the errors people are making. And what will happen is often if that intellectual knowledge of incorrect knowledge, intellectual incorrect understanding, we should say, that the world is an illusion and I'm trapped in this cage and everything is suffering and it normally comes with opinions like the government's out to kill me and everybody's against me and it's a conspiracy where they're going to put a barcode on the back of my neck in the next 5 years and I'll just be running on a sort of rabbit wheel. I tend to find those kind of views tend to go hand in hand with the people who are drawn to that intellectual side of meditation, certainly. So if that intellect, which might be true, maybe that is where we end up, but oh well, at least it'll be a change. So if you have that intellectual understanding coming in alongside this error of eradicating the connection to the sense faculties, then what you're going to get is the same as somebody that's overloaded from all of those experiences and it becomes flat. Yeah, no joy anymore, an inability to derive joy from, I'm going to let that person in, from the sense faculties. Do you understand that? Yeah, easy enough, right? That to me is what meditation sickness is, ultimately, Chanbing. Like that's what it is. That's the basis of it as much as anything. A depression that comes from that. You've destroyed the thing that causes joy, your senses, because that's ultimately where it comes from, isn't it? There's a deeper sense of joy that can come from inside, of course. Of course it can. It can arise from within the being till you are literally the embodiment of joy, if you like. But that means going quite far into meditation. So if you've only just started and you've achieved meditation sickness and you're a long way before that joy arises from inside, from somewhere more profound, oof, that's a hell of a long time of sort of depression and sort of nihilistic pointlessness you're going to have to go through in order to get there, which many people cannot do. They cannot get to that place. So more importantly, what they were supposed to be doing in meditation was purifying the sense faculties, which is not the same. So the defilements, I'll keep it quick, don't worry, it's only, I told you it's brief, won't be long. The defilement of the sense faculties are the overstimulations of the sense faculties in the first place. That's what should be shed, not the attachment to the experiences of the sense faculties. The other defilements of the sense faculties are the memories and the biases and the prejudice and the preferences, ultimately the memories that are stored within you that arise whenever there is a sensory experience. So if, for example, I were to look at a flower and I'm a child and I look at the flower and it's cool. I mean, kids can do anything, can't they? If you get them away from video games, you give them a stick, they're happy doing that in the dirt. People think kids are intelligent, but they're not. They're just happy doing that in the dirt with a stick, and then they're happy just sort of looking at, I used to be happy looking at a tree and being admired and the patterns, and then you climb the tree. It was real simple stuff. But then as you get older, you're like, flower, dirt, tree, whatever. We don't even look at it anymore. And we don't even acknowledge it. But the things that are preventing us from connecting with it, like a child would, are the defilements of the sense faculties. So what they are is they are your memories, ultimately, the accumulated knowledge you have of those objects. So when I look at I haven't even got an example around me, whatever, who cares? If I've got a flower and I'm looking at the flower and I'm a child, I'm taking everything in, right? Remember the first time you see something, the texture, the color, the light, you can throw it in the air and it does a helicopter thing, that's cool, isn't it? And stub it out and put it plate like it's cool, it's all exciting. But then after that, every time I see it, I've already had that experience, I've had that experience, I've had that experience, I've had that experience, till eventually at age 40, it's like, flower, whatever, you know what I mean? Like that's it. It doesn't mean anything to me anymore because there's nothing new to learn sense factory-wise from that object anymore. And eventually you get to the stage where everything is accumulated like this. So you just walk through labeling stuff. Chair, tree, plant, cushion, whatever, okay? Then you develop very strong preferences. I like this type of interior design. I don't like this type of interior design. I like this kind of flower. I don't like that kind of tree. And then we arrange our surroundings about that. Have you ever met a kid with many preferences like that? Not many, is it? Like not the same. A kid doesn't walk into a room and go, I don't like the decor in here. 5-year-old going, yeah, I think this kind of sort of 60s chic isn't really my style. They don't think like that. That's not how they think because they don't have that bias or their preferences. They just walk into that space and then they start learning about it and experiencing it. Now, ultimately, if your sense faculties were purified through meditative training, you would be more like the child. A child that was able to function like that. Because, I mean, you wouldn't put a child in charge of your brain surgery or something, would you? That would be a bad idea. So hopefully you can still retain that side of your intellect, but that connection to experience on the sense faculties should go up. So what should arise is more joy at the simplest thing. So if somebody is experienced at meditation and doing well, I know it's weird to quantify it like that, but you'll have to cut me some slack for this at the moment. But if somebody is doing well, I would say, at meditation, then they should take pleasure at the slightest thing. That breeze feels nice. That's an exciting experience. That plant is nice. That's very beautiful. I love the texture and the feel between my feet and the floor. Okay, that kind of thing. All of those kind of experience, that cell, that cement, should enrich life. It should become much greater. Now, if you had a very simplistic understanding of meditation, you might say that's an error, because you might say, well, somebody is attaching to life more. But that's quite the opposite. They're not attaching, they're experiencing something in its truest state. So they're actually moving closer to purity that is further from bias and preference and memory and stored information. And the result is everything becomes more beautiful. Do you understand that? Yeah. That's what meditation should do. And then you can enjoy everything. You can enjoy everything. Okay? Not everything. Most things. So, that's what Chambing is. It's that misunderstanding. It's that error. Yeah? As much as anything, that's what it is. It's that error. Yeah? Do you know people who've been there? Or maybe you've done it yourself. I've done it myself and hit that. Yeah. It's not that uncommon. Now, for many people, they can get out of it anyway and get out of it. But for some people, they can't. Some people, they can't. The casual meditator, they can usually do it. You know what I mean? If you're going along to a Wednesday to a meditation class, or you learnt it out of a book or TV or something like that, and you give it a go, and you get a bit of that because, you know, some people will hit it. It's not the end of the world. You can kind of get out of it a little bit. But what about the person who enters the monastery? Which we used to talk about that being really common in the East. But of course now it's common in the West, isn't it? Especially in America. It's actually, there's not that many monasteries in the UK, or nunneries, whatever, you know what I mean, hermitage, whatever you want to call them. There's not that many in Europe. There's some. Scotland has one. There's one down in the south of the UK. There's others dotted around Europe, but it's not that common. But actually in America, I was quite surprised how many there was when I looked around. There's quite a lot of these full-time sort of spiritual communities that are all over the place, which I'm definitely not against. I think that's awesome. That's really good. But a part of the problem is if somebody enters into one of those particular places and then they hit in meditation really hard and then that problem arises. Now hopefully they've got someone around them that's skillful enough to identify the issue and simply explain what I've explained to you, and then probably give them a different object of meditation just to change that pattern within them, to bring back that purity to the senses. But if they enter into one of those institutions that doesn't have anybody, institution is probably the wrong word, isn't it? You know what I mean? I don't mean to use that word, into one of those places, and then they don't have anyone who's skillful enough to identify this issue, then it can be a problem, because what they're going to do is enter deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into that state. Yeah. So that's Chambing. That's all it is. It's quite simple, isn't it? What meditation sickness is, I think. Some people will equate it slightly incorrectly, not quite, but you'll see the term used with that sort of dark night of the soul they talk about in ultimately Western esoteric traditions and things. It's a little bit of a different thing, but sometimes people will mistake this meditation sickness for this. Yeah, they'll think that's what it is. They're entering into this, some kind of unfolding of some process, but it's not. Yeah, they've just dulled the senses ultimately. The other place it can happen is if you sink your Qi and don't raise your Shen, I should add as well. Sink your Qi and don't raise your Shen. Yeah? So if your Shen sinks with your Qi, you will become mentally dull and the sense faculties will become tainted, if you like, unpleasurable. If you raise your Shen and raise your Qi, you'll just become really anxious, run around like a mad thing, like your hair's on fire. But if you raise your Shen and sink your Qi, then the mind will stay alert and the senses will function, but the Qi will drop down, which will starve the defilements. Okay, so that's what we're trying to do within Qigong, ultimately, built into the mechanisms. So, I'm going to drink this water before I do anything else. I won't talk more on that because you had a very long lecture earlier, and I think that one's easy to understand, isn't it? There's obviously more complexity to it, but that's the basis of it. That's how it can arise. Yeah, and it, like I say, it's not that uncommon. I think as a teacher, I think I have to talk to people quite frequently about this. Actually, it's not that uncommon. And I don't think there's a difference between genders, but I tend to have seen it from males. And I think I've seen it from both, but more from males. And if there was like an alarm group, it's the 25-year-old or 20-year-old totally obsessive male that doesn't really know what they want, but knows they desperately want to be an immortal. It's kind of that thing, that kind of passion, that drive, that obsession that's there, but they don't really have any background. They're running on empty, essentially. They're all gumption, no knowledge, like I was when I started out in these arts. And then that's what happens, is they come in and they hit that kind of passion, but they don't receive the guidance they needed perhaps at the beginning sometimes, and I think they've often read more than they should have done. That often happens a little bit at the beginning. So they've read all the Vedanta books, there is no self, And someone's probably they're the kinds on Facebook that write, there is no self as an answer to anything you write, which kind of makes it pointless to write anything if there is no self, because how are you reading it in the first place? But those kind of books tend to come up and they get caught in that trap, or they've read the really doom and gloom meditation books about life is an illusion that you need to escape from, or something like that. And that's generally the groups I see that tend to fall into that trap more than anything else. So I ended up in a strange position where sometimes you have to teach younger people this, but they come to you for the internal arts, and you have to have a conversation with them, teach them how to actually get on in life first. And I've actually had students that I've sent away, and they've mistakenly thought I threw them out the school, and haven't actually. I've said, look, I know this is what you want. Go away, have a life, have a girlfriend, get a business, experience something, chill out, come back. Come back to me in 3 or 4 years, and then I will teach you this thing that you want to learn. And in the meantime, while you're gone, learn something that's more appropriate for you. Learn life, learn some martial arts, do some kung fu, something like that. Come back to me in a few years when you've got a little bit more background before you. But almost universally, when I've had that conversation, they've really taken the hump with me. They've got annoyed and then sort of left in anger, like I've kind of rejected them or something, but they've missed the point that what I've seen is, look, you're this age, you've got no life experience, and you're a prime candidate for just eradicating the ability to experience joy and entering into this kind of monastic drive that I don't want to be responsible for guiding you through. So consequently, I'm much more comfortable teaching slightly older people. To be perfectly honest, sorry if you're younger on it, I'll still teach you, it's not what I'm saying. But I have less cautions around teaching older people certain things because they've generally got some kind of life going. And I've had a few experiences of younger people that just want to throw everything else away and just do this, which isn't necessarily the most healthy thing. I'm also aware that's incredibly hypocritical, because that's what I did. But do as I say, not as I do, would be my advice there. So I won't look at questions till yet. I'll take them all at the end, because I think I'd rather show you these 3 practices, which are obviously seated because they go alongside meditation sickness, right? And meditators are going to want to sit. Now they are simple. They are simple, very, very simple. Now the reason they're simple is because they're just trying to break ultimately the meditator out of their mental habit that they are generating. So the first one, just basically, don't worry, it won't ruin your meditation if you're a meditator, don't panic. But what it's trying to do is break the pattern they're forming from their meditation. That's what it's trying to do. Doesn't mean they can't return to it, but it just snaps any habitual patterning of the mind that's dropping into that state. So it's super simple. So it doesn't deal with it on an intellectual level or an insight level or develop more clarity. It's not about that, just breaks that pattern. That's the first one. So let's give it a go. Super easy, simplest practice ever. Because remember, these are prescription exercises, right? So we don't want them complicated. So, it's quite hard to sit properly on this couch because it's going in, never mind. So, spine upright. A few breaths in and out through the nose. Just relax the body. Oh, you start. I'm just going to change the camera angle actually, so we can see a bit better. Boom, change view. Okay, so nice and simple, very easy exercise. First of all, just breathing. In and out through the nose. So we're going to turn the hands over. Stay in the hand position matters. Palms up, palms open. The hand position suggests to the body and the energy to open out. Yeah. So I'm not totally sat. There's a little stretch. That's the first thing. Not a big stretch. Not like a Dan Tian Gong. Just if this is relaxed, it's just a tiny little bit. Just as a little engagement. Just essentially to keep the mind aware of the outside a little bit. It kind of prevents you from going in fully. Whereas if I do this, it's much easier to go inside, right? I want to go out a little bit first. So just a little stretch. And just let the body breathe. Okay, now what we're going to do is I'm just going to reverse the breathing. So draw in the abdomen as you breathe in, as per usual. Close that space a little. And as you breathe out, just relax. Give you a couple of minutes just to breathe this way. Okay, now you're going to bring your mind to the surface of the skin, just like when we do the vacuum packing, yeah, but we're not going to go in. So just bring the mind to the surface of the skin while you're reverse breathing and keep it there, on the surface. Just keep it there, rest it there for a second. Trying to get your mind to the shape of the body, as is quite normal for us. We do this quite often, right? Okay, so now, what I'm going to do is when I breathe out, on the out breath, I'm going to expand the mind out, just by about 1/2 inch off of the body. So it's like my whole body gets bigger, but it's not, it's just my awareness goes out, about 1/2 inch, an inch. Then I stay still as I breathe in. Then as I breathe out, I'm going to go a little bigger. Okay, just 1/2 inch. Then I stay still as I breathe in, and as I breathe out, just a little bigger. So in each out breath, it's like I'm just inflating the size of the space that my mind is filling, just getting bigger. So I start to listen to the outside of the body. There'll come a point where you kind of lose it, too far from the body, kind of get lost, and that distance will vary from person to person. Then I just return back to the skin, and I start again. And I want to, on every exhalation, just get a little bigger, and ultimately I want to get to the point where I'm filling the whole space that I'm in. But if you lose that stability, go back to the skin and start again. So, I give you 10 minutes to try this. Work on that practice. Okay, just a little more, a couple more minutes. And that will do. Just try to go bigger. Okay, then we don't close down. We just turn the hands over, put them on your knees, lift up, and then twist. Just twist. We don't close down because we want that pattern to run. Just twist the body. Turn the head. Okay, practice one. So here what I'm doing is essentially the same as how the other two are going to work in a very similar way, is they're raising and pulling the chi towards the surface and stimulating the nerves, right? To try to bring life back into that system and pull them out of that introspection. So the chi comes up towards the surface. So I'm already boiling hot anyway, so I can't notice the difference really. I'm sat in a sauna. Can you notice if a sauna goes up by a few degrees? Who knows? But the body temperature will rise. The body will start to elevate after a while. You'll feel it kind of physically pick up. And there's sensations all over the body the more I go out, as it just starts to run that chi through the system. So it stimulates all of the nerves and brings life back, pulls that kind of inward sinking energy up, towards the surface to bring some kind of excitement back. The second one, we'll go straight through the three. Some people will find that work for them, other people not. They don't connect with it too much. Some people will connect with something more physical, okay, but they'll all do the same to bring things out. So the next one, I'll do this one. Bring the hands in, touch them together, like a prayer position, but don't pray, wrong practice. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try to just connect through the body by listening through the structure. Connect through the body by listening through the structure. So it takes a little bit of internal skill. And then I'm going to pull with power the hands apart without removing the fingertips from one another. So the tips stay still, but I'm trying to pull the arms apart. So I'm creating a kind of tug of war for myself, where I'm pulling the hands apart, but keeping the fingertips and the thumbs together. Okay? So this should create a certain degree of stretch and kind of engagement around the upper body, right? Okay. Now, we're going to reverse breathe. So breathe in and out through the nose. Normally you would do anchor in the breath first, right? But I assume we're already in a practicing mode. So I'm just going to reverse the breath, listening to the body. Lightly close the eyes. And keep pulling gently, not too much. You don't want to give yourself a hernia, but just a little bit of a pull, just to engage and stretch everything. Or reversing the breath. So all up here is elasticated because of the pull, all around my shoulders, my arms, my chest. It's all elasticated as I'm pulling. And with the reverse breathing, it's going to send the chi up and out. Again, through into the nerves. So 5 minutes. I'm just going to change the screen so we can see you a little bit. Let's see a different bunch. Cool. So pulling apart, front of the chest, reversing the breath. Just a short practice session of this one. So remember, I don't just hold the shape, it's pulling. Trying to stretch the hands away without the fingertips disconnecting, so that it stretches everything here. It'll lift the diaphragm, lift the ribs a little bit, open the chest, if you get it right, so it just creates that stretch around the upper body. I really want to break that pattern for people that suffer with this, of the mind just going in and just reinforcing that emo-ness, if that's a word. I want to pull it out, get it to the surface, get the chi kicked back in, get it circulating, wake everything up. That's it, keep it going. Just pulling and stretching. Wakes everything up. Remember this particular, you keep going, this particular type of condition, Chanming, meditation sickness, is more yin, more in, right? More sunk, more introspective, more flat. So we want the opposite. I don't want anything too forceful, but when I'm stretching and reversing the breath, I'm doing this, sending it up and out, yeah? To wake everything up. It's quite normal if you have a room full of people doing this thing, which I've only done a few times, because normally this is more of an individual thing. But if I have done it with a group, you've had people start to laugh, it's quite normal or whatever, or you hear people starting to just chuckle, it's like it stimulates, that side of the nature goes up, yeah. We're just trying to break that introspective pattern, because as much as anything, I always think as well, part of the skill of dealing with something like this is also the speaking to the person to educate them, explain to them about the condition. But you can't tell someone, or you can't talk to someone while they're in a very down spot, can you? Like, you can't convince someone who's in the throes of awfulness that maybe there's a light at the end of the tunnel. So you have to first create a little crack in that state to get through to them, right? I have to get that energy up, I have to get it to move, I have to get it to stimulate through the body, I have to show them there's another way to manipulate the chi or to do internal work, another way to feel during these practices. And then once they see it, then you can kind of explain to them the error in their thinking. Just a little more, don't need to do too much. Good, that'll do. Then bring the hands to the legs, to the knees, palms up. Just breathe. Turn the hands to the knees. Again, twist. Just short bursts of these practices. Somebody with this kind of condition is what they need. Short bursts. Short bursts. Because if they're a meditator, guarantee they want to flagellate themselves with 5 hours of that practice. And you have to convince them that that's not healthy. That's not going to help the condition. If they turn the thing that's supposed to stimulate and move the chi into another practice they can just hammer away at for half a day, then they're just going to be led right back to square one. They have to chill out a little bit on that practice. Then turn the head, side to side. Okay, I'm just going to get some water a sec before we do the third one. So, obviously, before we do the third one, a lot of you are teachers yourself, this system, different system, doesn't matter. Maybe you're a therapist or,
medical practitioner of some sort, whatever, a lot of you are dealing with people, there's something to be aware of, that as much as anything with a condition like this, I suppose it applies for all of them, whether it be poison, fire, or influence in the heart, or meditation sickness, or any of them really, is there's an educational side that you have to get through to the person. You have to get through to the person. You have to get them to understand intellectually what's taking place, which, as I said, the hardest is for people who think they're possessed, obviously, to try to get through that thing they're hearing is not Satan himself or whatever coming through. It might be something else, something a bit more mundane, down to earth that they're communicating with. But there is an education alongside it. But in my experience, it's different here with Zoom, like over Zoom, it's over a camera. What can you do? You can do your best. You can help people as best you can. But in person, it's different. In person, you can get through to people if you can get them to understand about why a problem might be arising. But in my experience, they'll only take it on board if you can combine it with them feeling the difference. It'll only come through if you can show them, look, there's another way that this can work. There's another way that this can feel. This thing you're doing that is causing the Qi to rise, well, suspend your mistrust for a minute and try this thing with me. Even if you think it's pointless, we'll do it. We'll see what happens. And then if it alleviates the symptoms by 15, 20%, that's great. When I'm working with people, I don't even ask how they feel. Did you feel that? I don't care. That's my least favorite question. Do you feel that? Like, who cares? It's not about, I don't want to auto-suggest people. I don't want to pretend I'm interested in what they're feeling, to be perfectly honest, with regards to actual somatic experience, because that's not what matters to me. What matters to me is what's taking place behind that. The feeling is yours. The feeling is your experience. The feeling is the student's experience. The feeling is the experience of the person that's having the problem. That's for them. I'll never feel what they feel, okay, not accurately. And they'll never feel 100% what I feel, because everybody's nervous system is different. So I'm not focused on that. But what I watch for is just a little change. A change in their mind, change in their mood, change in their demeanor, change in just their brightness, something. That's what I look for, and I don't need them to tell me about that. If I can't see it, it's not there. Yeah, it's not strong enough. Okay, if it's not showing on the outside, it's not good enough for me to work with. But as soon as I get that little chink in the armor, that little crack in their situation, that's when I will then be able to talk to them, and I know they'll take it on board. And that's generally what I find is the biggest deal with regards to getting someone to change something. Okay, it's not enough just to tell them. Talking therapies, maybe other people can do it, people that are better at it than I am, but I can't. I require to have some kind of somatic experience of another possibility at the same time. So it anchors them into them that it's a possibility. I find that that's not just Qi deviations, but also as a teacher, that's the same with trying to get people to do something that I'm teaching that might be different from what they've been taught before. Because I'm aware that quite often the things I get people to do are a little bit different. Even the posture I get people to do, Wu Ji is a little out of the ordinary for some other systems. The way I work with the breath I know is a little different than many other systems. Maybe the way I work with the mind is a little different from other systems. The level of elastication, the things like this, the way that we don't utilize that circulation within the channels, and all these kind of things, they're all a little different quite often. Not from everything, but often from what people are doing. And I always tell people the same, that just try it for a weekend, try it for a couple of days. And then when they can feel the difference, which they generally do, that's when you can try to get through to them. That's when you can say, well, give it a go, give it a try, and try it for a little while and see. But you have to have that combination of the experience with the lesson. They have to go hand in hand, otherwise people won't take it on board. Trying to convince people otherwise, pointless. People will not listen to you from a book. People will not listen to you from a video, not unless they know you, not unless they trust you. You have to be able to give them that experience at the same time. Same with Chinese medicine. I'm a bit of a trickster. Sometimes if I know that 10 treatments are going to be, well, it doesn't normally take that long. If I know 5 treatments are going to be needed to elicit any change, then either that's 4 treatments of that person working purely on trust. So sometimes what I do is I will just put in some needles or emit some qi or something that kind of knocks off one of the symptoms, the sort of symptomatic side of it. Now, I don't care about the symptoms. I really don't. I only ever care about the core of a condition, but I know the knocking off of that symptom gives a change in condition that means you can start to work with them. You can kind of talk with them and talk them through it. When really what I'm doing is I'm aiming for the change on treatment 5. That's the one I'm concerned with. That's kind of my number. Treatment 4, treatment 5, that's what I'm after. The ones before, I don't really care. Because I know that's just setting up and opening the channels and preparing the body for what I do a little bit later on. Yeah, so it's all about that. Trying to get that change so that you can get in there and communicate that idea to them. And that's very important for Qi deviation. Very, very important, yeah. Have to show them there's another way. So, third one. Separated from the other two with a few minutes. So normally one of those other ones will work, generally. We'll start to, in my experience, one or the other. Start to just pull them out, lift. Whichever elicits the most reaction on their nerves, on their skin, is the one that's going to change the meditation sickness condition. The first one is based on breath and mind, isn't it? So people who are more leaning towards breath and mind, that'll get them, and that'll help it to open up and stimulate. The second one is more someone who's worked with their body. It's more like a Dao Yin, really, isn't it? People, more body-based people are going to get that change from this. So one of these two will usually work, generally. But our third one, as always, we will sit. We will breathe in and out through the nose. No surprise there, huh? Just paying attention to everything. And notice I do short bursts, not an hour, not half an hour, 15, 20 minutes. It's enough. It's enough. This person has a problem from their internal work. I don't need to hammer them with hours and hours. Short bursts. Yeah. Interspaced with chilling out. Okay. Now we're going to bring the hands up from the chest again. Okay. Now, we're going to change to reverse abdominal breathing, if you weren't already. As per usual, close that space on the in-breath, let it open on the out-breath, and you want your eyes open for this one. I moved from the least physical through to the most physical of these three. Yeah? So the eyes are open, looking forwards. Breathing in and out. What we're going to do is change into this mudra. All right, open the hands, common one for the heart. So the outside edge of the little finger and the outside edge of the hand are touching. I've got a little gap in mine because I've got scrawny fingers, but maybe you've got fatter fingers, there won't be a space. Doesn't really matter. It's essentially the edge of the little finger, so like this, yeah. Then what I do when I open it is I stretch out, and it's if my hands are stretching as if they're going around a ball. The fingers are kind of rounded and lengthened, yeah. Then I place it 1 fist distance, roughly, don't have to measure it necessarily, but roughly 1 fist distance from your chest, give or take, okay? Now what I want us to do first is I'm going to relax the hands, listen to the chest, okay, sink your shoulders, and then open the fingers until you feel a slight stretch on the chest. That's what you're looking for. So relax them again, do it a few times, and then stretch the middle until you feel a slight stretch on the chest. Should just pull here across the sternum after a while when you connect the two together. It's more of a bodily version of this exercise than the other two. Quite body-based, Tao Yinish. So I open out till it stretches the chest a little. Then when I get it, I just hold it. And I just breathe. And I gently smile. Because the muscles on the corner of the mouth, raising up, you don't have to look crazy, but a little bit of a lift on the corner of the mouth stretches the tissue down the neck to open up the sternum region as well. There's even a depressingly mechanical reason even for that too. I raise the corners of the mouth just to stretch those muscles and the tissue on the front of the sternum. And I just hold. I pay attention until the chi starts to rise up. And then I just stay with that for a little while. Just for 5 minutes. You can see it kicks my body around a little bit. Just because it's pulling the chi up. Stretch the fingers to move the chi out towards the tissues. Open the hands up more, some of you. Little collapse of the fingers, stretch. Stretch so that chi moves. Sends it up and out. Up and out. That movement of my body is coming from inside, just as the chi stirs. That's what I want to do. I want to stretch the fingers to guide it up and out. Essentially doing the opposite of many of the other practices which are about down and in, right? To anchor everything down away from the head. This is up and out. Up and out. A person with meditation sickness is not suffering from a lack of sinking. Okay, they're suffering from a lack of rising, a lack of everything coming out to the surface. Okay, reverse breath. Stretch the fingers. Good. Just a little more. A few more minutes. Turn. Press the hands together. A little bit of force, not too much. It's a little force, a little pressure. Like you're just crushing a pea. Something like that, a little bit of pressure between the hands. So hold it. Stretch the middle finger up strongly. Extend the middle finger with power upwards, just helping to raise the Qi. For me, because my body is connected to these exercises quite well, my body temperature is crazy right now. This is not comfortable. Thai heat combined with the Qi going out into the nerves definitely makes me sweaty. Good, then relax. Hands down. Just close the eyes and breathe, palms up. Good. And turn the hands. Lift the ribs away from the pelvis. And twist the spine a little. Turn the head. Hold it across the chest. Just a couple more. A few deep breaths in and out through the nose. Stretch your lungs. Out. Okay. So, is there any, because, yeah. Thank you, thanks. Okay, so before we do this, look at these, obviously we did those for about 15-minute sheets, something like that, just to fit the 3 in. But really, if someone was doing those exercises, they want to be about 20, 25, 30 minutes at a pinch, something like that, a little bit longer than we did, but that's enough, not too much more. Remember that somebody, same with all of them, like somebody that's having Qi deviations ultimately, maybe less so with meditation sickness, but with the others, their Qi is already kind of mobile, right? It's already moving a lot. It's already moving a lot to get to the wrong place as much as anything. So those long sessions of it aren't going to be particularly helpful to them. The shorter bursts are going to be fine. Yeah, they already have mobile Qi. So what is dragon sickness? Oh, I forgot to do dragon sickness. Did I? Then is it a generic term for Qi deviations? No. Apologies if you explained this last week and I blanked out at the crucial moment. That's all right. No, you didn't. No. Essentially, dragon sickness. Steve, dragon sickness is like Qi rising, that condition, combined with Dian Quang as much as anything, which you know what that is. Essentially those mood swings between excitation and low moods. And then Dian Quang is created by the Qi rising. That's what the dragon is, essentially. Sorry, I left that one out, didn't I? Min is actually in the academy lectures. Oh, somebody's answered already. Meant to be a stage for building. And okay, yep, that's correct. It's already there. Someone's already got it. Is it Chan Ping or Zan Ping you're saying? What am I saying? Oh, Chan Bing. Sorry, Chan as in jhana, ultimately, meditation, and Bing as in sickness. It doesn't matter. Meditation, sickness. It's okay, it doesn't matter. Min's answered anyway. Chan Bing as in Jen. Yep, exactly what Min says. Thanks, Min. Does Chanbing only arise from pure meditation systems, or for example meditating on the channel system as you mentioned in opening the channel course? Yeah, it can arise from that too. Anything that looks inside, really. I guess Chanbing, I know Chan implies jhana, but that's a little bit of a specialist thing, isn't it? You know, it can arise from anything where people are looking inside. I would say it's more likely to arise from a pure meditation system, but no, it can arise from other stuff as well. Hey, would you have the person refrain from the meditation practice for a while? Oh yeah, that's a good question. Or just use these alongside them. How often would they do these practices and for how long? Weeks, months? Could these be prescribed for depression not stemming from meditation sickness? Yeah, I mean ideally with all of these things, if you can get someone to stop the practice they're doing while they do the repair method, that would be ideal. But meditators, whoa, they like meditating, don't they? So that's going to be a hard sell. But if you could get them to take a break for a few weeks while they give this a try, that would be the best. That would be the best. I mean, everyone can take a break They can take a break for 4 or 5 weeks and they'll still attain enlightenment in this life, won't they? I'm not sure. Don't know if that's how it works. But if they can take a few weeks off, that would be awesome. If they could just try this exercise instead, that would be good. But if not, alongside the meditation's fine. But they're going to be kind of fighting the problem in the first place, aren't they? Could these be prescribed for depression not stemming from meditation sickness? That depends on the type of depression, really, doesn't it? If it's the kind of depression that's related to what I was saying, the overstimulation of the senses that just kind of eventually dulls the ability to experience joy from life. Because if we simplify depression, which we probably shouldn't do, because it's a bit insulting to people with depression, isn't it, maybe? But isn't a large part of depression ultimately a lack of joy at life on lots of different levels, whether that has a frustration or a kind of trapped or a kind of self-destructive quality or all of these other things? There's not much joy with depression, right? So there's that kind of undermining sort of shared quality amongst whatever other sort of things are on top of it as well. But if the depression is, its main characteristic is that lack of joy, then yes, it can be useful for that too. But for some of the others, it's going to be a bit difficult. Especially you're a Chinese medicine practitioner. If you think of the constrainment kind of depression, it's not going to be very helpful for that necessarily. Min says, you mentioned before that Chanbing comes from a lack of clarity and insight. What would actual jhana then be? Would actual Chan or jhana then actually be mutually exclusive with the Chanbing condition? Yeah, essentially. If you were entering into jhana, it would be difficult to enter into jhana if you were suffering from Chanbing. Yeah, it would be hard. Yeah, yes, it would. Yeah, some of the qualities would be missing. Okay, so I think I will leave, there's one more question. I think I will leave Qi Deviations there. If I get time, I'll do Dragon Sickness in brief, because I forgot about it. So if practice alongside a meditation practice, would it be separated or tag it onto the end but bring things up and out? Better off separating it, mate. Separate them out. I think you're asking about, you must know someone you want to do this with. Yeah, separate it from the meditation. Do it another time in the day if I were you. I'm a great believer in compartmentalizing for different things like that, just to separate them out so they don't bleed into each other. Would the Du Hua Gong Xin be mutually exclusive with this condition too? Yes. Yes, it would. I mean, the jhanas are hard to enter into. They're pretty tricky. They could take a bit of work, don't they? And yes, these kind of conditions, including this one, Du Hua Gong Xin, are going to be a barrier to it as much as anything. Yeah, you can build power. Problem is, you can build power without jhana. And somebody who's suffering with that condition is probably going to be more into the power than they are into the jhana, aren't they? That's going to be a part of the issue. Like, they're very leaning, doesn't really draw them towards that side of things. So, yeah. When I was doing the alchemy training a few years back, I found that everything's jumping up. That when I lay in bed at night before dropping off to sleep, I'd hear random bits of phrases or odd words heard as other voices, not my thoughts, which later I understood as picking up information in my field. Did I understand that correctly? The other thing I wanted to run past you was on 2 occasions, one before I trained with you and once again later when training with you. This was definitely different from the aforementioned example, and a voice heard outside myself in the room, slightly unnerving. Any idea what that might have been? Yeah, I would say it's just something to ignore. That would be my advice. Don't worry about it. The voices in your head, don't listen to them. Especially if they tell you to stab the neighbour. That's the rule. Just let them come and go.